Welcome, Barbara.
Hello, hello. As I always say, Queen Shippa, I'm so delighted to be on your show, your podcast. This has been a long wait for me, but it's been an honor finally to be here.
Absolutely. I am so impressed with all the energy that you have. You have two shows already, right?
Yeah, I have two and two more coming in the works, so I've been pretty busy doing that, but it's all because of my heart for people and making sure they shine in the world, in our universe. So I don't mind doing it at all, at all.
I truly believe you have a gift, and you were right. It it's been a long time
Yes.
for us. And now I always believe everything happens for a reason because while you and I had tried to have you on different topics over the course of 2022, you are talking today to me about the topic of mindset as it relates to conscious connection. And I feel like having gotten to know you in this past Shine on Stage period, I believe you know more about this on a more deeper spiritual level. I'd like for you to share your thoughts on what does conscious connection mean to you?
Well, thank you very much, Queen. And like I said, I'm going to start off by you probably hear me saying Queen a lot. And usually I say that because I work with a lot of women. That's my expertise that I believe in because of my stories that happened in my life. So before we talk about connection, conscious connection, you always got to look back at yourself. And that's what brought me to where I am now because, Queen, I once was a person that didn't believe in my value, didn't believe that I had a voice, didn't believe I even should be on this earth. And it was a lot of the mindset myself telling me that, but then there was a lot of outer voices telling me the same thing. When I was back in grade school, started when I was 7 to 10, I was bullied heavily. People used to say, what are you doing here? They called me an alien. I mean, they literally called me an alien. They told me I looked funny. I was too, at that time, I was a little, I call it fluffy, but they'll call it fat. And just everything that you can think of, they named me in a negative way. So from the start of my life, I looked at myself as small. And I always tell people the universe, and I believe in God, God always sends certain people to you. And I call them angels in my life. My teacher was one, my dad was the other one. And they put in me that I was just a diamond in the rough. So again, going back, connection, conscious connection. So that was a connection for me already to get the negativity out of my life and bring in the positive that was supposed to be the real me growing up to understand that I am important, that I am somebody, that I have a gift. So through that journey, Shippa, I believed in my whole heart and mind that if I'm dealing with this, how many other people are dealing with that? How many other people in the world is telling other individuals, especially I said women, because I went through a lot of different situations that other women might have went through. What are they dealing with? Are they dealing with the fact that people are telling them in their face that they're nothing? Are they dealing with the fact that they feel like they're not valued, they're not pretty? Oh, it was just crushing me because it was crushing me because I was going through it as I was thinking about it. So by the time the age of 17, unfortunately, a big hit happened in my life, a boulder, I call it. My dad passed away. And he was the one that would tell me all the time, he called me queen. At that time it was princess, because I was younger. Now I'm older. So I came from princess to queen. And from that point, he would just say, Barbara, you are going to be amazing in life. You're just going through some struggles. You're going through those low valleys that we call. You're going through a learning experience. And when he put it in that sense, I was like, okay. Now, being younger, I was like, okay, I hear you, Dad. I love you, Dad. But do I really got to go through all of this? It kind of hurts. It really, but that was molding me. And he went back to the diamond story. And my teacher told me the diamond story. They didn't talk, but they were telling me the same thing. So after I lost him at the age of 17, my age, And it was a brutal loss because he was murdered. He wasn't sickly or anything in an accident, but basically I felt like somebody took his life and took my life at the same time, because that was my diamond. Disconnection. I was talking about connection. That was a disconnection for me. But the connection came back when I thought about, should I end? Because at that time I was at a crossroad. Should I end my life and just be forget it because there's nobody else to cheerlead me in my life? Or should I move on to this mission in life that was given to me and make sure that every individual, especially, like I said, especially women, understand they have a purpose, they have a value, and they have a voice. And that started my journey, Queen. That started my journey to connect, to start connecting with individuals. Now, I mean, men and women. I always say women because that's what I tend to draw to when I'm talking about my stories, but it takes both. It takes both. And it takes you to tell your story so you kind of connect consciously with the right individuals that need to hear your story, that need to heal, that need to know there's hope. So with all that, you have to have that. I had that mindset at the time to say, okay, it's not about you anymore, Barbara. It's about them understanding what you went through so they know that they're not alone, lone or lonely.
My goodness, Barbara, the fact that you mentioned not these key anecdotal moments in your life leading up to where you are now, I feel like that is something so many people can connect to. I personally can resonate with this desire that grew in you. It feels like a butterfly that was still not quite grown or out of its shell, but
Mm-hmm.
one that recognized that if I feel this pain, then somebody else that is going through it feels it. And you can become the coach or the mentor that they may not have. Because I often felt that way throughout my career and throughout different stages of my life.
Yes. And that's why I said, first I felt alone because I was like, okay, I'm not dealing with this. And then after a while, after, like I said, the age of 17, I was getting older and I was really looking around at other people and I was seeing that there was hurt out there in the world with others. But they had to disguise, or they had to play it safe, or they had to show up a certain way, because if they show up the way that they were hurt, then people would have been like, neglecting them or what have you. So I was seeing that in people. And I think that that was another gift that I know God gave me, is like, okay, now that you went through this, Barbara, now that you're dealing with this, now the valleys that you went through, I want you to really take a notice on seeing others. So when I'm talking to people now, Shepa, every time I talk to people, I can hear the outside. I say, how are you doing today? This example. Oh, I'm great and wonderful, Barbara. How are you? Already, to me, that's a sign of they don't want to say what's really going on and they're pushing it back on me real quickly so they don't have to say anything. And most of the time, probably 90% of the time, I'm right on that, because people don't want to open up and say what's really going on with them, because people are going to think that, okay, they're going to think I'm weak, or they're going to think that I can't do something, or they don't think that I'm strong. To me, strong is being vulnerable, being able to open up, being able to talk, being able to make sure that people understand that, no, I'm not good. Because some days I'll tell somebody, they'll be like, Barbara, how you doing? I'm not doing too good today. They'll be like, okay, I wasn't ready for that. Where did that come from?
Well, and often it takes someone who recognizes that there are many people. I think most people we encounter often have these different layers, and those layers are there to protect them. However, it's harder to make a connection with other humans when what you're dealing with, like all these different layers.
Yeah. And another thing, Queen, they have to be, and that's where you have to start the relationship building with people, with the connection, because the trust has to be there, especially if I need to trust you with things in my life that I have really guarded and really was really hurtful in my life. And now you expect me to say all of that in front of you. it does not going to take one day to do that. Now, some people, they might be so much because of me. I'm going to say me, and I'm not particularly like the special person, but I don't mind. It took me years and years to say, okay, I'm open to say things that happened in my life because I know that's a mission for me to help others give them hope. So I'm open to saying what I need to say regarding what I did, what I went through. But everybody's not the same like that. People are not gonna, and like I said, it's not saying that they're weak or anything. It's like they're guarding themselves, like you said, Queen. Um, and have these like walls that say, no, I don't want to get hurt again. I don't want, if you say one little sentence or one little word, that might spring something or might trigger something in me. So I'm just going to keep it to myself. We can be friends. We can be, we can be in a community together. We can talk and say hi and bye, but that's it. And I always look at that as, to me, a lonely part of a person's life because if you can't open up to anybody, then to me, that's a state of a mindset of just closing yourself out from others. And that's not good at all. It's not good at all.
Yes, and that can lead to so many other, uh, I would say, issues psychologically, emotionally, and then blocks in the body. And the blocks, emotional blocks, turn into actual blocks that appear in the body. So I agree, and especially during the time post COVID, during COVID, I believe that a lot of us may have witnessed or been a part of a lack of connection.
And with COVID, just when you mentioning that, Queen, I I feel like COVID opened up the door to a lot of individuals that might was going through a lot of things in their lives, and it seemed like that just kind of just opened up the scam. I hate to say it like that with the sword, but it just opened up because now you notice that you're not going everywhere. You can't really cover yourself. You're in the house, or we had to be stabilized somewhere. So things was going in your mind. You're thinking every day, all day. Either you're working from home, or you're taking care of your kids, or you're taking a marriage, and everything's starting to kind of erupt a little bit because now you're sitting stagnated in a sense. You're like, okay, now I got to think of some things that I didn't really want to think about, or I got to deal with some things maybe I didn't want to deal with because I was going out or I was going over here and I was trying to let it not get to me. But now I'm here dealing with a whole lot of issues, plus, challenges. Plus, if you are not alone, if you were living alone, like myself, because I'm living alone. So even with that, even the strongest people say, Barbara, you're strong. There was some days where Barbara was like, okay, wait a minute now. I can't go out at all. And I'm here by myself. It was funny, Queen. Just this is a joke. All of a sudden I was hearing things in the house that I never heard before, like different sounds and stuff. I'm like, okay, is it me or am I just losing it right now? And your mind can go there. And I'm just letting you know your mind can go in different places and will take you to a place of feeling lonely, of feeling not wanted because you're not out there at your job, you're not out there at events, you're just at home. And I just thank God for, and I'll tell anybody, Zoom, any kind of mechanism, technical thing that we had, because if it wasn't for that, not just myself, but I think a lot of other individuals would have a different thing, saying something different now if that connection was there with the technology. Because I had to say that saved me in a lot of different places, not just with my clients, but just as friends and building a community even more.
And your shows also have been instrumental in helping you stay connected and others. Can you share more about the two topics you have and others that are in the pipe?
Yes. So, a lot of things I know for a lot of people in COVID too, creativity went up, was like booming for everybody, including me, which I'm not a creative person. And I said that at the beginning of that year when COVID first started. I'm like, okay, I'm not that creative now. I got to figure out something else because I can't go to somebody's house anymore. I can't visit them in the office. So one thing that I love to do is connect with people when it comes to what they do, their purpose. And I said how important that is. So I said, I asked myself, I said, Barbara, how can I create something that I can still get with people, but I want to shine a light on them because remember, back I said before about how I went through, and I don't want anybody knowing that didn't have a voice. So I created the first show at that time. It was called the Coaches Lounge, and I was gearing towards coaches, educators, and consultants because I never really see a lot of people showing them a lot of love on podcasts and anything. Now, there might be out there with podcasts. I haven't heard it technically yet, but I really wanted to hone in on them because remember, those are the people that stay with you through the good and the bad and the teachable moments of life. Now, Shipper, you're a coach, I'm a coach. Now, we know we have a lot of clients. It's just not a one done thing and then they're off. We sometimes stay with them for months, years, over and over again. So I was thinking to myself, they're helping people uplift their life. They're helping people move the needle in their life. They're helping people get to their goals and objectives in life. They should have a light shine on them because it's not only them thinking about themselves, but now they're so busy thinking about the other person to make sure that they're lifted up. So that's why I created that show. And I brought a lot of different coaches. And then people say, well, what kind of coach are you looking for? I said, any coach that you are. I just want you to get that light. I want you to be celebrated. And I think that's what's important when we're going back, Shipper, to connections with people. We need to learn how to celebrate each other. We need to learn how to build relationship with each other. We need to learn how to hear each other. So those are the things that I feel like is really much needed. And that creates that community, that creates that connection. And through the shows that I do, that's what I wanted to incorporate.
And I just love the idea that you recognize that these are relationships that coaches build, but sometimes the light isn't shined on them.
It's just like, well, wait a minute, you're doing all this because I see you. I see you, Queen. I see what you do. What in your genius, in your expert genius. And I always say it to everybody because when I always start the show, I always want to say the positive in what I see you doing because we have to uplift each other. That's the first thing I do. And then we start off by talking about everything else that you do and for the world and everything. But we have to remember that we're human beings, we're not robots. We're not chat GBT. There's no feeling. They don't care, but we're humans. And we have to understand that humans want love. Human, the human person wants to be says something to them, just not be like, okay, whatever. You have to uplift each other. You have to encourage each other. And that's what I always tell people. If we don't, we got to continuously do that because I see it's a little lack of it right now. And I think that's where the connection has to come back to. And I see it with love. I see it with respecting somebody. And I see just really having an interest in that person.
And that's what really lights me up when you say you see the good in them, you see their light. So I've always been like that from a young age. I'm innately curious about other people, and I zero in on their gifts, their gems, their diamond. I can see it in them, and that's probably one of the reasons I wanted to have my own podcast is because I always see, oh, wow, you're really interesting. How can we shine that light on other people? So I just love that mission that you have. And you also have another podcast, correct? On visibility?
Yes. So it's called the Visibility Corner and it just started this year. And I was trying to, two things. I'm just going to be, like I said, I'm totally open here. I wanted to connect what I do for my clients within a podcast or a TV streaming show. But I also wanted to make sure I was doing my first mission, and that's giving people their love and giving people the gifts and spotlighting them. So with the Visibility Corner, I have people come on, business people, people with their own companies, corporate, it's anybody really. But they give little tips throughout the interview on how they show up with their visibility in their lane of what they do. Things that might have worked for them, things that maybe didn't work for them, some things to stay away from. I know one person said YouTube wasn't their thing. Everybody's not going to want YouTube. Some people said TikTok, so they give little tips on why it didn't work and maybe it might work for you, but this is the reason why it didn't work for them. So I kind of combine those two where I'm giving them their love, making sure people understand who they are and how their lighthouse to the world, and then also giving some tips something for the audience to take away and say, hey, okay, I can do something with that when I'm trying to get my visibility out there. Because we got to show up. We have to show up. And I feel like being visible is the most important thing besides understanding your purpose in life.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Interesting. After our podcast, I'll have to talk to you about a master class I've been working on that resonates very much with what you just said. So it might be a pet project you and I can collaborate around. Yeah,
Already excited.
I can't wait to tell you more.
Yes.
The third thing I wanted to really zero in on is we are approaching the holidays, and as you and I both are aware, we I'll just speak for myself. I feel like I'm a sensitive soul. I sometimes kind of withdraw more easily than connect, and it takes a lot of energy on my part to connect because of the reasons we've talked about, the layers and working through our own, I would say, kind of scenarios in our brain or mind that sometimes sets us away from society. So perhaps based on everything that you've learned so far, maybe you can give us 3 tips so that women particularly can feel they can resonate. A lot of my listeners are female entrepreneurs.
So before I answer that question, because they're very important, this is very important because I've struggled through that. Like I said, I'm living on my own right now because I went through a divorce. So I'm just me. I don't have any children. So when the holidays come up, now this happened just a few years ago, I was like, soon as October hit, I would get so upset. And I get so upset because I know we have Thanksgiving, everything's about to start. Thanksgiving, Christmas, or some people might have different religions that they do, but Christmas and New Year's. So boom, 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 all in a row. On top of that, for me, my dad passed 3 days before Thanksgiving. So so now I'm dealing with not only that the holidays, I feel alone. I'm in my house by myself, and I'm slowly still thinking all these years passed about my dad. So with all that, before I used to just go into that, okay, for 3 months I'm going to be a hermit. I'm totally open here. I did that for 10 years. I did that for a long time. And then that's why I said the angels come in your life. So then I heard a podcast, as a matter of fact, and they were talking about loneliness, and they were a little bit rough. But see, Barbara learns from people being like really straightforward. And when I heard them say, you decide how you want to live your life, no one decides that for you. If you're feeling a certain way, then you have to make the change. Don't look for others to do it for you. And I was like, first I was like, dang, really? First I got like, say that? You don't understand. I started going into that thing, almost to the victim mode, which I hate. I can't stand that. But I went there. But then after I thought about it, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, we have to make our own decisions on how we want to live in this life. We only have one. Am I going to sit here like a hermit all the time and be woe is me? Or am I going to take the little steps and moving yourself out? So I took the little steps, and sometimes it does take little steps. So the first step I did is I went online. I looked for, because we were in COVID at that time, I looked for online like events happening. Because the whole Zoom thing, everything was taken up. You can find any event online at that time because you couldn't go nowhere. So I first started off by doing that and going into the rooms of those rooms. Now, mind you, I didn't have my camera on, and they said that was okay, but I was listening. I was in a group with other people. I was listening to their stories. I was listening to their adventures. I was listening to what they were going through. And that was the one step. And then the next step was, okay, now I need to turn around and say hello to family. And if it's just one cousin or one uncle or whoever that you feel comfortable with, or a close friend, because some people might not be comfortable with family. You never know, depending on your situation. But I reached out to one that I could really trust and say, look, can we have a face to face? I just want to just have a talk, maybe 10, 15 minutes. That's another step. So, you have to find things. First, you got to make in your mind. Here goes back to the mindset again. And I want to tweak this mindset a little bit, Queen, because everybody's talking about mindset. You have to have that mindset. You got to believe in yourself. And I agree with all of that. In fact, I teach on it too. But there's something to add to that. And I want people to start thinking about mindset into mind flow. And what I mean by mind flow is when you think of mindset, that's a set. Think of set. It just, you sit in there. I was sitting in that loneliness. I was sitting in that room, but I had to open up my mind and flow to make sure I get those steps going. So technically, just give, like I said, going back to giving people what to do to the next stage, you have to take those steps, but you have to own yourself and say to yourself, do I want to be doing this the rest of my life? The one life that I have? Because you know how a lot of people say, a lot of speakers say this, you're born, you got the middle, and then, we get our wings, as I say, we fly to the next world. But I always tell people, you need to do something in that middle. You owe that to you, and you're accountable to yourself for that, and you're accountable to others, because now you're hiding your gift. People need to know your gift. If Shippa would hide in the house, we wouldn't get all of the beautiful things that she does, not just within her products and services that she offers, but just her as a human being. When I first met Shippa, we met in a community. She didn't even have to even say a few words, and I could feel the wonderful energy that was coming from her. How many people have that same energy as missing out because they're hiding? So that's what I would say.
Wow. Well, again, I have goosebumps. I resonate with everything you're saying. And I feel like we're kindred spirits because this is how I see other souls. When I see other souls and when I see you, I see their gifts. That's why I've interviewed so many people. I'll get in tears just saying it, but that's why I'm like, I see your gift. Maybe they see it also. That's good for them, right? But sometimes some people may not see it. Like one time I had a woman who did this epic hike, in series of epic hikes. And I forget the exact data, but basically she crossed a milestone in California for how long and how far and how brave she was. And it's my most listened to podcast. So sometimes they don't know that that little act of taking one step forward after another and making it into an epic hike can really inspire another soul.
Yes, yes.
I like the steps you gave us. You said the first one was during that period of COVID, you basically realized you needed to take ownership.
Yes.
And then you decided to be seen by extending yourself to someone you trusted.
Yes. Yeah, that was the first step, because no matter, people can tell you what to do, how to do it, where to do it, when to do it, but it's going to be up to you to do it. And it just had a really, like I said, it took a podcast that I was listening to jump in my mind and do that little voltage in my brain to say, okay, Barbara, what you're going to just sit here? What are you going to do? You say you want to do this. You say you have this gift. You say that you want to help women. All this stuff you're saying, but right now the actions they're showing right now is no. So I had to, I went through and I always tell people it's okay to have the pity party, just don't have it so long. We all got to cry out. We all have to scream out at times. See, I want to make that clear, because a lot of times people feel like, no, you could never cry. Don't do it. Don't tell nobody that you did it or anything. But no, we have to let it. It's called a release. You have to release before you receive. So you got to release it out, the crying, the scream, whatever it is. I have screamed. I had opened my door and screamed. Some of my neighbors thought I was crazy. And after I told them, I said, I'm not, I'm just releasing. But I had to release all of that anxiety, all that hurt, all that pain I was going through. And then once all that happened and cleared out, and I got the tissue and all that stuff, and I sat there in my room, now it's time for the soothing, for the healing to start. Because if you don't release it, like I said, I don't care who tells you what to do, how to heal, you're really not going to get that full healing because you haven't really truly released it out. So that's the important part. So really, that's the first step, really. And then understand that, okay, now that you did that, Now, what are you going to do now? You have to step up in your life. And then that's where you start to find different things going to help you.
So your second step, you mentioned connecting. Is there a third element that kind of brings it all together for you in terms of
Third,
conscious?
third element is one thing that I do. And I told myself, now that I released, now that I stepped up in my own life and said, okay, Barbara, you got to move forward here. Your accountability to yourself, accountability to others. And the third step is to stay consistent in making sure that you're either loving yourself or loving on others. And what I mean by loving yourself is sometimes it's okay to put a 2 hour on your calendar and say, this is Chippa's time or this is Barbara's time. And no one's going to go within those 2 hours except for me and whatever I'm doing. So I had to do that because I got to keep the wheel, I have to keep moving because you can start something. And then if you're not consistent with it, then you're going to start going backwards. You don't want to go backwards. So you got to continue on that cycle. The second thing with consistency that I do is I always reach out to one or two people every day. If it's just like a 1 second, sending them a smiley face or send them a little heart or just send them just getting on the phone and hitting that button, that record button, say, hey, Stefan, I just want to tell you are a queen of the queens. I love you so much. Have a nice day. Boom. That took what? Less than probably a second. But why can't we take that time out, just a little time in our lives to show ourselves some love and then to show others? And that's where you build that connection. And that's where your mindset and mind flow, I'm going to add it to it, starts to work more and more during the day, every day.
Brilliant words. Brilliant, Barbara. You are so awesome. Now, just to wrap up, I wanted to invite you again in the near future to come back to the podcast. I just really love connecting with you here. And I sincerely believe that those who will listen to this will feel healing opportunities because you've given them that opportunity. And one last question, I just curiosity that I think others will have. What and when was your show inspired? Was it during that period of COVID or was it before that?
For the two shows I mentioned, both of them, the Coaches Lounge was inspired during COVID because I was just thinking to myself, okay, I'm having a hard time right now in my business because that was the way beginning where we all had a, like you said, we were all in our houses and stuff and we had clients we had to deal with and we're like, how do we do this? And then I was thinking to myself, you know what? I'm always talking about, I want to make sure that people are getting visibility. I want to make sure that people are understanding who they are. And I know everybody else is trying to figure out a way so they can still show up as we're going through COVID. So that's when I created the Coaches Lounge. Because then I said, let me bring these coaches on. They can talk a little bit about what they do. They can give examples of what they do. See all that going on. And I know the whole world was watching because they couldn't go nowhere else. So like you said, we use technology for what we need to be done.
Well, Queen Barbara, you have brought such a beautiful gift. And look at, even though there was a painful period, that you birthed this beautiful show to help people.
Yes, always, and will continue on and on and on, Queen. So every time you call me Queen, it's a Queen right back at you.
Well, thank you, Queen. I look forward to having you back in 2024.
Yes, I will. It's going to be an honor. Thank you again. I appreciate you so much.
Appreciate you. Have a great day.
You too.